We want you to understand that the experiences that the humans are going through at this particular time is that shift into elevation and consciousness that we have created. When you begin to recognize that there have been more and more experiences and letting go of the past belief systems and the way that cultures have regulated human behavior, you'll begin to recognize how and why we have made our presence known. Hi, I'm Lisa Wetsel. I channel information from the Akashic Records, and I am here to welcome you to your superior self.
So, Lisa, how do you walk through this reality,
The earthly reality,
the earthly reality?
one step at a time.
Well,
And I
how
know that, yeah, that's a simple answer, but what and I'm actually really being serious, and I'm not playing on with this. The thing about working through this earthly life, especially at this particular time and where we're going to, raising our vibration, is it can be challenging, and so I've literally learned that you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You're never going to know what's happened an hour from now, 5 minutes from now. And so the most important thing is to be present. I'm not perfect at that by any means, because we're human, and this is our earthly experience that we're having, and we've been so conditioned to see things, project things into the future, and not be here and now. But I found that when we look so far into the future or live into the past, that there can be a lot of anxiety. There can be a lot of anticipation. There can be a lot of expectations, a lot of disappointment due to our imagination or our thinking about way things can unfold. And so I try very hard to be present and to be able to allow things to come. And when they come and they may not be what I'm thinking they should be, being able to look at it and really wrap my head around what's happening and transpiring, trusting in the universe, and continuing to walk that walk of being present and being connected to all things, and not be so limited to what my mind creates.
Mm, hmm. So, what's actually creating?
I'm sorry.
What's actually creating, right? Like, is it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so miraculous when you can stay in the present moment and see how synchronicities happen, see how the universe puts things together, and being open to receive. And what I found is that the more that we're in our heads, the less we receive, because we're looking for one thing that our mind created, that story that our mind created, that you miss all of the miraculous, beautiful, wonderful things that are being presented around us, because we have tunnel vision. So yes,
Mhm.
try very hard to be in the present moment and to be an observer.
Hmm. So, you channel the Akashic Records, and I know it's very important to lay the foundation, set the table for our conversation. But before we do that, I would really like to get an idea of your framework. Like, how is it? What is your process? Like, what does that look like, so that people can understand a little bit more when we're talking about these subjects, like how it is you're able to access these records?
Mhm. So I learned how to access the Akashic Records quite a while ago, around 2003, and I learned the way this. It's the way people normally learn how to open their records, and it's with a specific prayer. And so whenever I'm in my records or somebody else's records, I use the prayer to open those records. And at that point, then I can feel the energy shift within me, and I recognize that I'm in that energy field that is needed. So for myself, if I'm opening my own records, then I'm accessing the records for myself. And how this process happens is that I begin to actually feel the energy around my heart, and then it goes through my body, and I can feel the energy spinning, and I can feel my mind start to shift. And that's how I recognize that I'm in the field. And so how I typically do it is I do better when questions are being asked. So if somebody asks me a question, I'm I receive the information, I receive the words that are the Akashic Records Masters answers. I receive the words, I can feel. I may feel something that's around my heart. I can see things. I'm a little bit different because I have all of the stuff. So I hear, I see, and I feel. And so I'm able to repeat the message to whoever I'm speaking to. You know, let's say it's you, for example. I would receive the message and I would repeat it to you as I'm hearing it. And and then if we needed to have an explanation or build on whatever the answer is, I have the ability. I'm a little bit different than other people that channel because I can kind of jump in and out of that energy stream. So once I give you a message, then I can come back and talk just like this. And then we can create more conversation to dig into deeper to whatever the answer is, ask the question in a different way or ask more questions. And then, you know, and we create a dialogue with what's being said with the masters. And so then at that point, you know, if when I come back, maybe you didn't understand exactly what the message was because the records do kind of have their own language that it may be a little bit challenging to understand what they're saying. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking in circles, so it's hard for me to understand sometimes what's being said. But when we come back, then I'm more able to explain what I saw, or if I saw something as I'm repeating the words, and we can go a little bit deeper into that.
Sure. How did you know you were accessing the Akashic Records?
For me, again, it's an energy shift. So I mean, it's if you're really in tune with your body, you can really begin to feel how things start moving around. And I feel the energy spin. I feel it do this spinning around me, and I always feel it in my heart. And so usually it goes from my mind down to my heart, and I can feel something that's either spinning or pressure in my heart, which I recognize at that point is definitely the Akashic Masters because they're heart based.
Hmm.
It's
How'd
a
you know
little
it was
bit.
them, right? Like, was there a sign that said, "Hey, enter here for the records"? You know what I mean? Like, how'd you know exactly that? Oh, this is the Akashic Records.
Well, I'll tell you what. This was not an easy process, and it's when you start doing this kind of work, and a lot of people want to become more psychic or become a medium or start receiving information. So when you start opening yourself up to receiving information, it can come in all forms, and it can come in the disguise. An energy can come in and present itself as something that may be loving, and actually it's a dark entity. I had those experiences. So as much as I hate to say live and learn, I've had to live and learn a lot. I have opened myself to bring in stuff that I had to get rid of. And so it really is, it's almost kind of like that hands-on training
Mm.
thing where you have to kind of learn. But for me, what I have learned is that the Akashic record energy is very different from a spirit energy. So if you're if it's somebody that's passed, the energy feels different. If it's just an entity that's presenting itself to me, I can see that difference. I understand that it's not coming from the field. The Akashic field is a very, very high vibrational frequency. And it's almost like I just feel the energy. I don't actually see the beings like you would if sometimes, like when I'm not a medium, but sometimes people jump in and I can see it's more like a physical presence that's with that type of energy than the Akashic energy. But again, we all receive our information differently. So I can't say that everybody that does the Akashic records, has the ability to access them, feels them the same way. But I feel them as an energy. And it's a loving high frequency. So that's a difference as well.
How'd you know they were dark entities that were attaching themselves to you?
First of all, my personality change.
Really?
Very, very, very instantly. When they talk about, people, when people talk about personality changes, and that, sometimes you don't recognize, oh, something just happened to that person. All of a sudden they're angry, and they're starting to exhibit behaviors that have not been normal for them. I mean, again, I've had so many experiences that I can't name them all, but one specific thing that happened to me is that I was actually staying with my parents, and I saw an entity that walked through the wall, and I knew they had been struggling and having a lot of anger issues and discontentment, I guess is the best way to say it. And so at that time when I saw it, I chose to absorb it because I wanted to get it out of the house. Now, I'm not saying that that's the best thing to do. I happened to do that because I knew that I had somebody back home that could help remove it from me. But the instant that it went into my physical body, I got angry. And it was an immediate personality change. And that was at night. And the next morning when I woke up and I went to have breakfast with my parents. I recognized that I was just pissed. I mean, it was definitely, to the point of, it's like, oh my God, now I understand what was going on, because I'm just angry and mad, and not even really with any explanation. And so they do have a tendency to bring out the worst in who we are and cause that chaos.
Hmm. Well, how do you know it's an entity, not like you're just, I don't know, bringing up emotions from the past when you're triggered by something that your parents said or something? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm at my
Well,
parents' house.
no, I saw the image. I know that this was not. I mean, obviously, we all have parent issues, and that could very well be it could be an emotional issue, but no, there's a definite difference
What the
in
image
the
look
way
like?
that the way that it feels. It's a very thick, heavy energy. But I also saw the image. I mean, I could see the outline of the body as it came in, and I've had that happen before. And so I could definitely tell the difference, but there's definitely a frequency difference, and again, it's really important to be in tune with your body and recognize how the energy and it shifts. I can feel the energy difference whenever I have a soul that's passed come to me. It's a thicker energy. It just feels different. And so again, I've done this long enough and had these different experiences that it's helped me to discern what's what. And again, I don't know how you teach it. It's more or less something that you have to experience.
Mm. So what I'm hearing here is you were able to, I don't know, I guess the higher levels of consciousness that you access, you're going to attract those negative entities naturally, maybe. I don't know. Like,
And no,
are they trying to like not, I wouldn't say disable, but like, somehow, uh, like create a resistance between you and the record. So that way you're not doing this type of work. Does that make sense?
no, that's not what was happening. What was happening is that I became an open vessel.
Mm,
And so it's almost like I was like, oh, everything is love. Everything is wonderful. Oh, here comes Jesus coming to me, and in a disguise of something that's dark. So come on in, because you're Jesus and you're presenting yourself as love. And so what was happening is that I didn't have my barriers up, and I wasn't discerning. No, you're not the energy that I want. I'm keeping you away. It's more like, come on, everybody come in. Let's just all have a party. Everything is good. And so that's what was happening. I don't have those experiences today because I know what the difference is. And a lot of people believe in the belief system is that the higher your vibration, the less that you're going to attract those darker entities. A lot of times when we attract those dark energies, we're in a darker place. Our vibration is lower. They have a tendency to prey on people that are in weakened conditions. Maybe people that have a tendency to maybe drink alcohol a whole lot, where you're not present and where you can defend yourself. or protect yourself. You may be in a depressive state. There may be numerous different reasons why you become vulnerable to these darker energies. So it's, it's a real interesting process once you become aware of the energy what's in your body, and you become more in tune with how you feel on that physical nature. You can recognize, but it's also, important to recognize where your state of mind is, so that you can help alleviate or protect yourself from this lower, denser energy as well.
Sure. I think this is all great stuff, like being able, one, discern for yourself what's going on within your body, and then also know that you don't want to be an open channel for anything to come in, right? I think that's
Yeah,
huge.
don't just welcome anybody that walks by.
Sure. Not everyone wants to be your friend,
Yeah,
for sure. That's the
exactly.
lesson that I've had to learn many a times, right? But that's their karma, not yours, right? Like, I feel like you need to protect yourself in the best way possible. How can the Akashic Records like help someone? Like, I'm really curious about this self-transformation piece. Like, how is it
Mhm.
that accessing these records, this information, can help the individual flourish?
Um, okay, this is my definition, but I would also like to give the Akashic Records explanation, let them explain it to you. What I learned very early on is that the Akashic Records are not really meant to be a predictive tool. Like, okay, we're going to tell you what's going to happen into the future, and am I going to win the lottery, and those types of questions. The Akashic Masters are here to assist us in our spiritual growth. And what I found was that the best tool, or the best way that I like to use the Akashic Records for me, is to help us to transition to a higher level of consciousness, to help us to let go of the negativity of the old belief systems, the way that our mind perceived situations, shifting that perspective into the spiritual perspective. And so what I found is that when somebody asks me a question, it can be simple as, why did this particular event happen? Because from their mind, they may be perceiving it as that they were the victim, that something horrible happened and it was to punish me. And, this was the result of a choice or decision that I made, and it was not good. Well, we can take a situation like that and open up the Akashic Records and have them give the explanation of their perspective of why these things happened. What was the true intention for an event to happen, or why were we born to our parents? What were we supposed to learn from by having that experience? So it takes us into a deeper understanding of the spiritual connectedness, and how to maneuver around those stories that create pain and sorrow. And what I found is that when we have a different perspective of a situation and recognize the magnitude of why things happen, and how it doesn't just affect me, that there's so many different players in the story that we may not even be aware of, that maybe something happened because it had to affect somebody, that old story, 6 degrees of separation. Maybe it was something that was supposed to happen on a bigger scale that you're not aware of. Maybe we were being used as a tool, and that we weren't actually the victim, but we were actually assisting another soul in their growth pattern. Or maybe it's a situation to where my soul had to experience something specific in order for it to grow, and for me to change course or directions from where I am at that present moment. But with that being said, the Akashic Records can tell you, we've got, past, present, and future history. And, the records hold all things. And so if you want to know something about the past, well, let's go into the past, not only past this life, but past lives. If you want to know something that's going on in the present moment, okay, we can address that. Okay, what's going to happen in the future? What's in line for me in the future? Well, they can tell you that as well. However, the future can always change because we have free will. And so if you're on a specific course or a path, they can tell you, well, this is going to be the outcome if everything stays just the same. But the thing about that is, okay, I can see that that's going to happen. But if I don't like what that story is going to be, then I can change my course of direction. But what we also, it's a typical question that's asked is like something like, "Am I going to get a job?" Okay, well, I can tell you that this is what's in alignment for you. But when we look at the whole picture, there's not only one decision maker in getting a specific job. Let's say you're going to work for a corporation and they have a group of people that you have to interview. If people are making choices and decisions from their mind, then they may not be flowing in that cosmic energy that's creating what your path is supposed to be. So you may not get that specific job because somebody, five five people are making the decision and one out of the five decided, I don't like what this says on paper. So I'm not going to vote for this person. So they're not going to get the job. But if they listen to their intuition and they listen to all the guidance, they listen to that gut, well, it may not look good on paper, but I want to give them a chance anyway. Let's go ahead and hire them. Okay, you're on that path. But what we have to recognize is that we have free will. So your path can always change. And it depends not only on how we live our lives and what we create as change, but those around us as well.
Mm. That's so powerful, I think.
Yeah,
Because you
it
become
is.
the creator, right? Like you
Yeah.
become, there's agency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's also why it's so important to live in the present moment and not be so stuck on what the outcome can be. And I hate predicting the future. And that's what I always tell everybody. And I learned this lesson a long time ago. I'll tell you what's being said, but do not hold on to it. Do not hold on to it, because what's happening is that when I predict something that's going to happen in the future, let's just say, another typical question, am I going to meet the perfect partner? Okay, well, yes, you will. Okay, so here it is. Okay, well, when? What are they going to look like? And it's like, okay, wait just a second here, because this is what's going to happen. I can tell you that on December the 16th in 2025, this tall, handsome man that's going to have dark hair and a beard, who's approximately 45, is going to walk into your life and you're going to just fall heads over heels. Well, what are you going to do between today and December the 16th? You're going to ignore everybody around you. You're not going to pay any attention to any of the relationships, anybody that comes and goes, and you're just going to be counting down to December 16th. You miss the world as it goes by when you're so stuck on what's going to happen in the future. You miss life. And so for me, it helps. Sometimes I have to have some help and guidance in the future. Sometimes it kind of helps me to calm down. But what I find is that I miss like the perfect person. What happens if that tall guy with the dark hair and whatever is what if he gets distracted? What if he jumps into a relationship that takes him down a different road? He makes choices and decisions that change his course of life. Okay, well, there you go. Your future just changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I stay so focused on that, then I might have another person that comes into my life that will be just as suitable or maybe even better that I may be missing because I'm so focused on what I was told. And so again, this is why it's so important to me to be able to recognize, stop living so much in the future and start living right here, right now, and really be present for all of the individuals and all the relationships. Maybe you meet somebody that's just coming into your life, giving you some knowledge and wisdom, and then they move on, but you missed that because you were looking, I'm not going to have a conversation with that person because he doesn't fit the description. And so it just drives me crazy. It's like, yeah. And so it's like, please just live it, be open to whatever the possibilities are that are in front of you and live in that present moment and absorb everything that's around you. And don't be so tied to a story.
Sure. And it can be frustrating, especially when you have seen something and the results from that, living that way in a particular way. But here's the thing, I can tell people to meditate all the time. Meditation is the key to the now moment. But the reality is, there are studies that support this, that a lot of people don't know how to meditate. They don't know how to do it or what it's like. So if you were to speak to someone right now listening who doesn't know how to meditate or even be in the now, what is it look like when you're in the now?
They're saying what we want you to I'm sorry. They're jumping in. I'm going to let them answer. My guides. I'm going to let them answer the question. So, but what we want you to understand is that meditation is a process that can transpire throughout the day. What we want you to know is that there are times and there's instances where the mind becomes blank and you're specifically in the present moment. Recognize this can be when you're drinking a glass of water. It can be a time that is when you're taking a shower, you're driving down the road, you're eating something that you're fully engaged in. Recognize that it can be as you walk down the street and you become more observant to those things that are around you, such as the trees blowing in the wind or the birds that are flying overhead. What we want you to understand is that the point of meditation is to quiet the mind and be fully present or coherent in all things that are done. They're talking about mindfulness. And so what I'm seeing is that, we have a problem with meditation and the fact that, okay, I can meditate for 30 minutes. I'm going to quiet my mind, but I'm going to do it for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to get up and run out the door and do the 15,000 errands that I have to do, get in my head, think about what do I have to do next? What do I have to do next? Oh, I've got to talk to this person. They distract you. You're all in your head trying to answer them from your consciousness, from the conscious mind, and not from the knowing of who you are. And so if we can't take that meditative state and move it into our everyday life, meditation is only in a moment. And so what they're jumping in again. What we want you to understand is that as you take your every second breath, then you'll begin to understand that when you're fully engaged, what is happening from second to second to second, that you'll become more meditative throughout the day, and you'll recognize that your consciousness will shift and that you'll see the beauty in all things as if you have not before. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay. Is that where
what's
you
the
were
difference?
going?
Yeah. So 100%. Like, so when I'm in my head and I'm listening to the voices and I'm listening to the programs and all the things that are playing, like, it takes me out of the moment, right? I'm feeding an emotion in my body that is arising, fear, anger, anxiety, and it's creating a storyline in my mind in which I go down that rabbit hole and I feed that emotion by continuously going into that story, into that play. And there's also times where I use my imagination to create. Right? So what is the imagination? Like, what is it that, how do I know that, can I be in the moment while I'm in my imagination creating, or is that not being in the moment?
No, it's actually being in the moment. And it's funny because the creativity, in fact, I just did a video on creativity and spirituality. It's like, this is where we're moving to, is, our creativity has been held down. It's been suppressed. And, as when we're children, we have these experience of getting to finger paint. We get to draw, we get to color, we get to do these things. But as we grow, those things are pushed away from us. And we don't get to use that creative aspect of who we are. But again, my records are jumping in and they're saying, but what we want you to understand is that the creative aspect of who you are as a human being is the utmost consciousness that's coming to you to create the fulfillment of who you're meant to be, which is creative. What we want you to understand is that as you become more creative, you'll begin to recognize that the inner voice becomes louder in the point of harmony, peace, and love. If you'll begin to recognize that as you begin to be more create certain things, you'll find that your mind can step away and you'll have light bulb moments. And as you begin to move and maneuver through the activity that you're participating in, you'll begin to recognize that it becomes more of a flow and not a calculated effort. And that's how you recognize that you're standing in the truth of pure creativity and not the mind's control of what it should be. And so what I'm seeing is that, cooking is a perfect example of creativity. Okay, so I'm following a recipe. And so, your mind is engaged in step one, step two, step three, step four. But then all of a sudden, there's something like, I think I'm going to throw some nutmeg in here. Well, we think about it in the sense that, my mind is just telling me that nutmeg would be good in here. But there's something, if you think about where that feeling or that notion comes from, it typically comes from that heart space and works up. And so the way to become more in the present moment and become more creative and listen more to that intuitiveness is figuring out where this comes from. And so when we become more intuitive and you're really standing in this place, the heart area, you'll find that guides work through the heart and the message has a tendency to come up instead of being focused here. And then, and I feel the wheels spinning. If you can start recognizing that when you're in your head, it's almost like you can start feeling your brain shift. It's like I've always felt like it starts to get tighter. I feel pressure in it. But when you're in the flow and you're allowing things just to come forward, then it's more with grace and ease. And it's like your hands just start moving. Things just start coming to you without effort. It becomes easy. And so when we go into that creative mode, it's also really important. So like, for example, I'm seeing a painting. And if I'm painting and I'm finding myself have this idea of this is what I'm going to create, and I'm going to use these colors and these colors, and then all of a sudden everything just starts flowing. And we understand artists have a flow. And I know that we know this, we've heard this before. It's like they get in their zone, and musicians and all of this stuff, it just kind of starts flowing from you. When you have that experience, you recognize that your mind's not engaged, but then you start stepping back and then you start looking at it going, I think I need to do this differently. Yeah, the rules say you have to do this. I've got to change this because it doesn't follow the measurements or the idea of what it's supposed to be. So then when you get in that place of beginning to analyze or critiquing what you're creating, then you jump back into your mind. And my guides are saying, so what we want you to understand is that the place of contentment is the purest form of creativity when it flows through you without the critique or without the guidelines that regulate what should be. And this is what we want you to know.
So beautiful. I think the act of creation is so powerful. And we take it for granted. Right? We just say, "Oh, well, that's just a great idea." But you're taking something, you're basically collapsing a potential. It's like from nothing is something now, and we take it for granted. It's like, "Oh, well, I just thought about that, or I just painted that piece." We don't really understand the power behind creation. Like you literally took a concept that was not in this world, that was in nothing, and now you've created it into something. And I've had these realizations as I go, like even with the podcast and a couple of speaking events. Like I had this this idea, this connection, and then the thought, and then it manifested like in a way that I was able to create. But it was really it was like a strong positive emotion after I created it. Like I had taken something from nothing and created it into being. And that joy, it's like every day we can experience that, whether that's a thought or an idea or whatever, but we just take it for granted so much. I mean, we're creating all the time, but we don't realize it because we're so focused on different things, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. And it's being in the moment, being in the flow. And imagine what this crazy concept of being able to live your life in a flow, allowing things to come to us and being able to create and manifest. And again, the other thing about manifesting, it's so interesting. People are so, it's a thing. It's this thing people get possessed about. I want to manifest more money. I want to manifest a bigger house. I want to manifest a fancier car. But what the thing about it is that coming from your head, or is it coming from the truth of who you are and what the universe has planned for you? So when you can let go of those ideas of what things should be, what they should look like, and stay open and allow these things to come to you as the universe means for you, you're going to have everything. Everything is going to be there because you're living in the flow of your existence, of who you're meant to be as a human being. And I know that that's contradictory to a lot of people's belief systems. So I'm just gonna throw out a different concept out there. I'm not going to pound my fist about anything, because I know that everybody comes from different perspectives and different ways of seeing things. But what I've found is that when I can stay in the flow, and I have this feeling that this is something that I should do, when I should, if I feel like there's something that's coming to me, that I had a little light bulb moment, and I allow myself to follow whatever that flow is, everything is going to line up to perfection. The right people are going to come into your life. The right opportunities are going to come in your life. The timing is going to be unbelievable. Everything is going to flow in a way that we can't predict, or we can't put in place, because the universe is setting this up for us. But if we fight it because we're so set on, oh, I'm not going to take this job because I'm not going to make the amount of money that I feel like I need. Well, you're making choices and decisions from your head, your wants, and what the stories are that's being created. But maybe that particular job is going to open up new doors for you, that's going to allow you to make more than what you ever imagined. But you nixed it because your head just jumped in and said, nope, that's not what I want. So there you go. You just threw yourself off course again. And now we got to get we got to get you back on course again, so that you can have what's actually meant for you to have. And how many choices and decisions do we make out of fear, that we stay confined to where we are? I mean, how many people stay in relationships because they know that they need to get out of it? They've got that gut feeling. Everything in the universe is telling you, get out, get out, get out. This isn't good for you. And you have a different path to go down. I can't. What if I don't have security? What if I don't ever find anybody else again? What if I didn't, what? And so then you're making a choice from your head that's based in fear and those old belief systems, and not trusting that that everything is going to be taken care of, and that it will manifest for you in a way that you can't see, because your mind hasn't been able to conceptualize what's in front of us and where we're going to. So I am a big believer in standing in that this place of knowing and trusting that guidance to take me down the path that I may not have any idea of what can actually lay ahead of me, because I have this idea in my head that this is all that is.
Well, I just recently got back from a men's retreat with some brothers that are in my area, and it was like a whole different transformational experience for me, where I got to really dive into camaraderie and like connectedness on a whole different level, like more of the masculine level. And I'm like most guys, where I have this wound around masculinity and what that entails, and attachment styles to that. And it really healed a lot of aspects of myself. And so when I reintegrated back into society, it was tough for me, because I don't think society supports these types of relationships. The best way I can analyze this is, I was talking to a brother during the retreat. I was like, it's almost like a play. It's like, this space right now that we've created, this container, is like the backstage, and all the actors have taken the masks off, and we're all backstage, and we're all just kind of having a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, just talking about our roles that we're playing. We're like, man, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. And then going back into society is like putting that mask back on and going back out. But you can't put the mask on without knowing that the mask is there. Like you feel the conversations are different. The quality of conversations are different. You can see people operating from a fear, anxiety. You can see why they're doing things, what's influencing their behaviors. So I'm curious to know if the guides or the masters of the records say like how does society change? Like, is society ever going to change to where it supports these environments where people can actually connect to who they are? Because I feel like I felt more love, and I felt more at peace. And I felt I was definitely out of fight or flight, and I was definitely in that parasympathetic state of being to where I could access different levels of myself and receive different levels of information. So, but society seems to be set up in a way that is rigged. And maybe Eastern cultures, not so much, but I definitely feel like in the West, it is a certain way, maybe for a reason, or maybe has been influenced by it for a reason. Did they ever talk about how we get out of that? Like, is it, I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense, but
Oh yeah, it does. It's my favorite subject. It's called transferring into the fifth dimension. Yay. And congratulations. I honor you for your work too.
thank you.
Gosh,
Thank
that
you.
makes my heart so happy that you did that. But okay, they're jumping in. What we want you to understand is that culture and civilizations are shifting and changing around the world. What we want you to understand is that the consciousness of the collective is raising to a higher vibrational frequency that is allowing all species to recognize the specific roles of who they are as human beings, which is the soul's container. And so what we want you to understand is that the revolution or evolution that is transpiring at this particular time is to allow the freedom for the humans to become more in consistency or coherency with the soul's knowledge and wisdom. We want you to understand that the experiences that the humans are going through at this particular time is that shift and elevation in consciousness that we have created. When you begin to recognize that there have been more and more experiences and letting go of the past belief systems and the way that cultures have regulated human behavior, you'll begin to recognize how and why we have made our presence known. You'll begin to understand the transformation that has begun and is in process at this particular time. You'll understand that the vibrational frequencies that are being emitted to the earth are specifically for the reason to allow human consciousness to rise to a place of knowing and understanding oneness, the completeness of all beings in all things. What we want you to understand is that the roles are in play that are creating the shift for the humans to recognize the heart-centeredness of who they are. What we want you to understand is that the hearts are opening up in ways that they have never done before, and that the minds are shedding the old cultures so that the humans can move forward in the fullest capacity of loving one another and the equality that is meant to be. This is transpiring at this particular time. And what we want you to know and understand is that all are involved. This is not just a selective few. All humans that are upon this earth are having this experience, and this is what you need to know at this time.
Mm.
So, and it's interesting though that you should even bring this up because, my gosh, if you look back over the last 6 years, we're becoming more and more accepting of one another. I mean, you just look at, gosh, from 2020 to today, how we're shifting our old belief systems, those old structures, the way that men are supposed to be, and the roles women are supposed to play. We've all been categorized. Men can't show their feelings; they have to be tough. They have to do this, and you men have been conditioned to be that way, but then again, women have been conditioned to be, they're supposed to be at home taking care of the babies, and you're not significant if you don't have a child, and all these old things that have been passed down through centuries, that have conditioned us life after life after life after life to being. The way that we're shifting our consciousness and moving into this fifth dimensional energy is by letting go of that old construct. And it's falling without us even understanding. We're talking about living in the flow. You'll begin to recognize that there's something that happened. And you imagine when you look back at your life, look over the last 8 years or so, and you begin to recognize, this doesn't fit me anymore. I don't think that I like this. It's beginning to really feel uncomfortable. And just like what you said, after you're in this space of being your full, complete self, being fully connected with the truth of who you are, and this beautiful experience of spirituality, connectedness, connecting with the people that are around you in all things, you feel how comfortable that is. I like it here. This feels good. Yeah, I want to stay here always. And then you get in the car And then you get back to the 3D world. But what's happening is that by you having these experiences and people like you that are having these experiences, we're separating from that 3D world. And the records have always called people like you and me and like us, we're the first wavers. We're the first wave of humans that are moving into this fifth dimensional consciousness. And so we're moving at a faster rate than other people are, but we're also more aware of how we're shifting and changing. And it's almost like everything that is of that 3D dimension is getting magnified, and that it's not comfortable for us to be there anymore because now we're aware of it. And so what's happening is that we're moving in a certain direction, and those that are staying in that 3D are kind of staying over there. But what's happening for us is that we're shifting and we're embodying this new way of being, this new light body, this energy that's coming from within us and that's allowing us to see with different eyes, see things differently, understand the connectedness of all things, being a spiritual being. So as we're trudging through, and I'm seeing like an army guy, like with the pack on his back, trudging through the swamp. And as we're trudging through this mess and trying to figure this all out, we're going to make it because we're meant to do it. And what's interesting, again, going with the flow and who we're meant to be as human beings, our mission on earth is to transition into this fifth dimensional beings. We're the leaders. We're the first round. So we're going to go through all the hards, all of the, oh my God, I don't want to be around people. I don't want to have normal conversations. You people wear me out. You're sucking the life out of me. I don't want to drive down the highway. I don't want to go to the grocery store. I don't want to because this energy is too much. I can't do it. And so then we're starting to pull ourselves into seclusion. But what's happening is that as we begin to go through this process, we're also recognizing that it feels a lot more comfortable to be over here. So we will not go back to that third dimension energy. But what's going to happen is that once we finally get ingrained and embedded and all of this stuff shifts and changes and we recondition our brains to just be and not live, it's deprogramming, all of these old ways of thinking, then we're going to find that we become the teachers. In which you are right now. Here we are having this conversation. You're serving as the teacher. And so as we move over into this understanding, then we're going to turn around and people are going to be looking at us going, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to do it. Show me the way. And then we're going to end up taking people one by one, just like the retreat you experienced. Next time you do it, you're going to probably tell a buddy, hey, you know what? I think you might like this. Okay, well, here's one more that we're going to help show a different way. And it gives them the opportunity to open up and expand. And this is what's happening now. This is what's happening all around the earth, that we're having these first waves of us that are getting over here. And the more and more of us that allow ourselves to make this shift and change, the more and more love and light is around the world that brings the others to us. And then those that are living in that 3D are going to be less and less. And this is happening at a rate that is unbelievable. If you really begin to recognize, you're probably having more conversations with people that are just like, God, I'm sick of the fighting. I'm sick of the hate. I'm sick of of the division. I'm sick of being, you're better than me or I'm less than. It's like, I'm just worn out. And so you recognize what the universe had to do. They had to break us. They had to get us to that point of, I can't do this anymore. I need to find another way. And it's continuing to happen. And, over the next 6 to 8 months, there's going to be a whole lot of this breaking down that's happening. And you're going to find more and more people that are wanting to have conversations with you and with people like us that recognize that I can't do this anymore. And it's happening at a rapid rate. And it's here right now. And I live in Oklahoma. And last night was the perfect example of this energy that's coming in, that's helping us change. We saw the northern lights in Oklahoma last night because of the solar flares that are happening. That's the second time this year that never in the history have we been able to see the northern lights. And 2 times this year, this has happened. So you think about the power that the universe is taking care of us. They got it under control. They know what's happening. And they're putting us in this energy to break down so that we can evolve into who they're created us to be, and break down those old belief systems and ways of that we've been so conditioned to be.
That's so beautiful. Well said. Wow. There's a lot of energy behind that. A lot of truth.
Yeah.
A couple things that you said in there. You talked about the potential or the purpose of humanity. Like I always wondered that, like, you know, outside of the programs and the religious dogma, like what is have they ever spoken to like the true potential of humanity or the human being? Like what is our purpose here on earth? Like why are we here to, I mean, I don't believe myself to be a human, right? I believe I am here experiencing this reality as a human, but I don't think that's my true essence. But as an avatar of a human being right now, like collectively as a species, like what is the purpose of the human? Is it to be a vessel for experience?
I mean, ever since you started, there, love, 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 love. And they're saying, so, but what we want you to understand is that the soul has to have the specific experiences in order for it to transform and become whole and complete. It has a specific mission that is meant here on earth to create humanity as well. At this particular time, what we want you to understand is that all of the roles of every soul that is existing upon the earth at this particular time are of the master status, meaning that there's no babies on earth at this particular time. We're all old souls. They're laughing and saying grandpa souls. But what we want you to understand is that the specific mission of the human realm at this particular time is to allow the changing consciousness so that humans can be more aware of what their full potential is as of being connected to all things. We want you to understand that the soul's connection to the universal consciousness lies within each and every one of you. The knowledge and the wisdom of all of the superior beings lies in each and every one of you as you have been created to be on this journey. But what we want you to understand is that the human mind has to be deprogrammed or shift into the coherent understanding of who we are so that they can see the full aspects of the potential of what can be. And this is what we want you to understand. The human realm is moving into a state of consciousness that is allowing all love to take place and transpire on the earth. They're not calling it the human earth. We want you to understand that at this particular time, the love that is consistent within every human being is meant to come to the surface in a way that it has never been before. What we want you to know is that the love that is within every human being is being implemented so that all individuals can see each other as their brothers, speaking of brothers, as their brothers and sisters, and understanding the family or family. I can't say that word, familiar. I can't say that word. Family, anyway, the family connection that is consistent between every one of you and all of us. And this is what is transitioning and happening at this particular time, where humanity will become of the loving nature, not the hatred, the anger, the power, the greed, and the ego's control. So basically, it's, again, everything that's happened throughout history in the beginning of time evolved into this power game, of separating, humans. One is more superior than another, and all of this division that has been created throughout the centuries. Slavery. I mean, how long has slavery been in play? Oh my gosh, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And so we're in this place now of, like, the universe said, you know what, we've had enough of this. We're done with you silly humans in your heads and your minds. So we're gonna undo this. We're gonna unravel it. I always see it like yarn unraveling. And we're going back to the place of the truth of who we are. If you really begin to think about, what creates the difference between you and me, it's the programming that says that you're different than me. It's everything that is separating us, all of the hatred, all of the anger, all of the, I have to have more money, all of the greed. We'll manipulate people to get what we want. That's mind. that is completely from our head. That is not the truest essence of who we are. The universe didn't create us to be that way. The universe actually created us to help one another and to work cohesively together, which is why we have plants and animals and water and the sun and the moon. That's the cohesiveness of all things. We silly humans are the ones that have divided everything. So when we talk about humanity and what the purpose of humanity is to regain the balance of all things so that we can live in harmoniously or live in harmony together. And they're saying that's what the mission is at this particular time, to create or to have humanity evolve into a more loving state.
Some powerful truth in that. It just seems like it hits good, hits hard, hits different. And I'm just curious to know, what would society look like, right? If that were to happen overnight, which, who knows if that could or not. I don't know. I'm not going to put any limitations on change or evolution, but if that were to take place overnight, how would it look different?
Everything. Well, again, it's just, let's just start with the way businesses are run. Okay. So I'm not going to name names. I'm sitting here thinking, should I name a name? I'm not going to name names, but let's just look at a powerful company, and their goal is the bottom line, money. And so if we're looking at a company that is basing their business practices on making more money and creating more income for the people, the powerful people that are at the top of the company, what would happen if those powerful people recognize that, maybe I'm not the person that needs to be so greedy. Maybe I should start caring about the average person and actually benefit people's lives and help them grow in a way that is more cohesive to society, so that there's more a balance of helping one another than trying to take and destroy others. So, for example, I think I can say this pretty easily, like the pharmaceutical business. We know that humans take medicine, which I'm not going to get into that because, I'm not saying take medicine or don't take medicine. We're just using this as an example. People that have to take medication, and the cost, their lives depend on specific medications. Let's just take diabetes or something that, you have to take insulin. You have to take it to survive, to live. The greed of the companies that produce this put a certain price on it. They're not caring about the person that has to have this because their life depends on it. They're thinking about how much money they can put in their pocket. Okay, so we understand how this works. What happens if those people that are at the top, the CEOs and all of that stuff, start recognizing, you know what, maybe I'm going to produce this product and only make a minimal amount of money that will cover what I need, and I can have a comfortable life, but it also will make the person that has to have this, their life more beneficial, because they're not struggling about how they're going to eat because they have to have their medication. So it's almost the point of bringing, they're laughing, and I'm hearing my guide say, they're bringing it back to reality. It's like bringing this balance into where the corporate greed is more of on a humanitarian basis, working for one another to help each other as human beings and not just line their pockets. So recognize, there's a lot of organizations that have been created, like to save the oceans, greener living, things that are, people are creating these things that are helping the earth exist instead of causing more harm, and they have their heart and their intention behind it. So what's happening is that those things are already in play, but it's going to become more and more powerful. And so as people that are running these businesses that are more greed-based, they're going to start having to deal with their own demons. And this is where this is going to come to, because the universe is changing us. We're not going to be responsible for those people that are manipulating people and selfish and great and not really caring about the individuals that are relying on them for their survival. The universe knows how to deal with it, but it's going to start changing. Our way of thinking and our way of believing, how we treat one another, is shifting, and it already is shifting. And there's pockets that you can start recognizing that, yeah, I think that we need to do this a little bit differently. We need to be more inclusive. We need to understand that all humans are equal. There's no difference just because their skin color is different. We're all humans. And there's not any superiority because one guy is a CEO and somebody drives a truck, whatever it is, there's not any difference. We're all the same. And so it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I already see it happening. I see the language of people changing. If you start listening to TV, like on these talk shows, for example, I was listening to a show the other day, and one of the hosts was talking to somebody that they were interviewing, and he said, "Do you feel like we're turning into a more loved-based community?" Oh my God, they said that on national TV. That are we shifting or evolving into more of a loving way of looking at things? If you really start listening to the language and how people are talking, you're going to start seeing that there's more conversations about loving and respecting each other than there's ever been in the past. So I can see it happening. It's just the point of when it gets complete. So it's changing.
That's good to hear. I feel like if, to your point about pharmaceutical or big pharma, I think if we are living in a more harmonious and connected community, we wouldn't have any need for them anyway, because we would, essentially be out of fight or flight and allow our immune systems to be 100%. And then you would be fighting off all of these diseases that we accumulate over our life course, essentially. But then also, like, to your point about, it's belief systems too. So like some people that need that medication, like, need it because their belief is so like hardened to think that they need that in order to survive. And to take that away from them, I mean, you would have to pull the string on millions of beliefs that they already have, that's already wired in their brain, that they need to actually be stable in this reality.
Yeah.
So I think it's, to your point, I think it's a lot of living in the now, realizing what state you're in, whether it's fear or love. Fear is an illusion. If you live more in the moment, you can see how the fear is manipulating your behaviors and your actions. And for me, I just want to add one more step in that process. It's to have gratitude in that moment, to ask yourself, like, why am I feeling fear in this moment? And what is it here to teach me? Like, what is it here to teach me about my life course, my life purpose? Like, what is my higher self, my superior self trying to tell me in this moment that's going to help me evolve as consciousness? And for me, that's really helped me put things in perspective instead of being so tight to the actor and in the role and in the play. Like, the more that I feed off that emotion, the more I become the I, or the persona. And I've set up some meditation practices that have helped me understand that in the moment when I'm super into fear, I'm in the illusion. Like, I know that I went all in on this character, and to take a step back, like, have this meta awareness of, like, all right, what is this fear teaching me? Like, what is it in the moment that I need to know, like, to learn right now, and then have gratitude for that learning, because I know eventually it's going to evolve me into a more mature old grandpa soul, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going to pull up that grandpa wisdom.
That's right. Lisa, this has been amazing. I just love your energy. I love your wisdom. I love, like, your connection. So I would really love to be able to send my audience your way for guidance. How can they do that? How can they find you?
Well, my website is lisawetsel.com, and it's spelled Wetscl, is Wetzel, not Z. Yes. So you can find all kinds of information. You can schedule sessions with me on my website, and I have a ton of information, channeled messages from the Akashic Records there. But I also have a little small YouTube channel. It's called Lisa Wetsel, Akashic Records, and it's also based on this type of information. So you can just jump over there and get some more information.
Wetzel with an S. I love it. Yes. Lisa, last question. Do you have anything on your heart? Do you have anything that you want to project into this reality of light that is purposed for or directed towards the audience member right now?
What's coming to me to say is trust love. Trust it. And the thing about where we are today is that we're so, like you said, living in fear, fear of getting our hearts broke, fear of being too open, and a fear of loving each other. All of that stepping away from and hiding from the truest essence of who we are is love. Step into it and trust that love will save us. Love is who we are really meant to be.
Love will save us. I love it.
Yeah.
Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.